Hello, everybody. Good evening. All right, 5 o'clock. Welcome to class. We're going to give 5 minutes and then we start, okay? Here comes my materials. Thank you very much. What do we start? I need extra.
The rest will be
Okay, on this one, right?
yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, 2 minutes, 1 minute. Where's my pen? Oops. All right, everybody. Hello again. Let's begin. Oops, Sorry, one sec. Okay. All right. Let's talk about your agenda first today, okay, and for the rest of the week. Chapter 10 is what we're going to talk about today. Who doesn't have chapter 10? This is chapter 9. Or maybe we don't have. Okay. I have chapter 9, chapter 10. More are coming for chapter 10. Chapter 9, chapter 10. Okay, anybody else? The 9, chapter 10. Okay. Chapter 9, huh? I'm sorry, it's chapter 7. Sorry. Chapter 9. Oh, no, you need chapter 9? Or no? Oh, this is chapter 10. Chapter 7. You need chapter 9? No. Chapter. Oh, you have to make this. Okay. So, maybe they will do that. Alright. Oh, you cannot see? Can you switch off the middle? Okay. Chapter 10? Okay. Chapter 10. Alright. No? Oh. What happened to our system? You okay? You need more less light or whatever? You're okay with that? Okay. Okay, guys, here we go. Alright, today, first we'll do a review, a mind map, and start and remember about learning curve. You remember? Learning curve theory. Let's try to remember where it applies. And then we go to chapter 10, which is on budgeting and standard costing. It's a very short topic. That is the introduction to chapter 11, which is a very crucial topic, which is variance analysis. Variance analysis is very important because questions in the exam will involve variance analysis all the time. Okay? So we need that to discuss today. We'll start today, and then of course we will continue on. Okay, tomorrow. Okay, our next class is of course tomorrow. What is tomorrow's date? 7 April, Sunday. We will continue on chapter 11, which is variance analysis. And then we go straight to chapter 12. What is chapter 12? Chapter 12 is still variance analysis, but planning and operational variance. Okay? That is what happens there. Now, of course, in the middle is hooray, is your what? Is your Khmer New Year, correct? So happy Khmer New Year. Alright? Now, when do we see each other again? Yes, 20 what? 27 April and 28 April, correct? You understand? Then we start with performance measurements. Okay? The last part of our syllabus, the last section of our syllabus. Okay? So, it will take us into May and into our extensive review. Alright? So you have a whole 2 weeks, okay? And I hope you use the 2 weeks to study what we've covered so far. Alright? Yes, I know it's a holiday It's nice to celebrate, but I'm sure you get bored of celebrating. So I'm sure you're going to study a bit. Yes? Right. So you need to be able to focus on that. All right? So, all right. So that is our plan. So for today, tomorrow, and the week that will follow. Okay? The weeks that will follow. Any questions? Okay, so of course, silence means agree. Okay. All right, I like that. All right, let's do the mind map, please. Okay, let's talk about learning curve. Okay, now you're gonna review this with me. The review is for you, not for me, huh? So, the learning curve theory is part of, okay, is part of budgeting because we said that when something, so what is this? What is the learning curve? The learning curve theory is, what is it all about? We said, okay, when you have labor-intensive, correct, process, right? There is what? When there is repetitive process, you understand repetitive? Something is being done again and again, okay? What happens if laborers do it again and again? They become more, okay, more skilled, become correct, become more efficient. Very good. That is the word I was looking for. Okay, becomes more efficient. Okay, let me expand that. Okay, so they become more efficient. Now, of course, they may become more efficient over a period of time, isn't it? Over a period of time. Because what we say, they actually what? The employee actually, that's why we call it learning curve, because the employee actually learns, correct? Okay, now, but does the learning stop? Does the learning stop? Yes, the learning actually occurs up to a point. Okay, and what is this point? Okay, this is when you say it at this point, the learning, we say, stops. Okay, which means no more learning and they become already efficient. Okay? Now, where does this apply to? Where does this learning curve applies to? Applies to what? To, number one, companies that have what? Uses labor in their what? In their production. Very good. Okay. What else? What else is the condition? Is it something that is complex or simple product? Does learning exist in a complex production or a simple production? Is it simple? There's no learning. So it's complex, isn't it? Okay, so it happens when you have complex production. Does it happen on new products or old production? So it's basically new products. Okay, new products. Now, question. How do we calculate the learning curve? What do we need? What are the information we need? Okay, so we need to be able to calculate. So let's go back to 100%. So far that's what we said there. The question now is how to calculate. Okay, so in our calculation, we need to calculate, cumulative average time. So let's see. There's two ways to calculate. We said number one, we can use a what? We can use the tabular approach. So when we say tabular, which means we need to prepare a table, correct? Okay, so tell me, what is the format of our table? What is the format? How do I calculate cumulative time to make 1 unit? You remember? So how do I make the table? Okay, so let's do it here. Okay, so how many columns do I need? You remember, anybody? How many columns do I need? How many columns? You should remember this. First, you have the quantity, correct? What did we say about the quantity? Number of units. It will what? It should be what? Give me the quantity. I start with 1, so it doubles, correct? Okay, so it should be 4, 8, and so on, correct? Okay, and then, what is the column next to that? It says, cumulative time to make what? Sorry, cumulative average time to make how many units? To make 1 unit. Okay, and then the next column will be total time, correct? Okay, so which means the first unit is the first number of hours to make the first unit, right? How do you get the time for the next two? You take the rate multiplied by what? Let's put some amount here. So 0, 0. So we need to multiply by 0, 0, correct? Yes? Okay, what is R? R is your, what is R? R is equal to your learning rate. Remember? There's 90% learning rate, 95% learning rate, correct? Okay. So that is what you calculate as your average time to make 1 unit, okay? Now, another way to calculate, the learning rate is using the formula. What is the formula? Can you remember the formula? What is the formula? Y is equal to AX to the power of B, right? Okay, so what is Y? Y stands for what? Correct. Y is equal to cumulative average time or cost to make how many units? 1 unit. What is A? A is what? Anybody? What is A? Allah. You don't remember? What is A? Time to make the first unit. Yes, A is the time to make the first unit. Okay? Right? What is X? X is the number of batches or the number of units you're trying to make, correct? Number of batches or units. What is B? B is equal to the log of what? The log of your learning rate, correct? Divided by the log of 2. Okay. Normally, the B is given in your problem. Okay, in your exam problem. Now, what are you trying to calculate? We said we can use this to calculate the number of hours, as our example showed us, number of hours to make the units. Okay, and also gives us the efficient time to make the product. Okay? Now, where do we need to use this? Why do we need to calculate the learning rate? Okay? Remember where we can use this? Where can we use the learning rate? When we are calculating what? Okay, there are uses for this. Where do we use learning curve? Number 1, we can use it to calculate cost per unit, because it will tell us the average time to make the item. Okay? Or it can be used to what? Calculate. Okay? Calculate total cost. Like our example, the last time we met, we did the total cost. You remember our example? We costed out one company who is proposing, okay, to provide labor, okay, to build the kitchens, okay. All right. So we can do that now. All right. So we can also use it for budgetary purposes. Okay, that's why we talk about it in budgets. So it helps us to prepare budgets. Okay? So again, all right. So we will be able to use this for budgetary purposes. So hopefully it reminds you of what we talked about last time. Okay? I'm sure it helps. All right? It's too small. Right, so any questions on learning curve? Otherwise, we go to chapter 10 and we start talking about budgeting. Okay? Budgetary systems. Okay, so the first half of today's discussion is on budgeting and standard costing. Some of the information here you probably have known from before. Okay, so outcomes. Number 1, we need to look at and understand standard cost again. It's very easy. We will look at flexing budgets, and we will look at the principle of controllability when it comes to performance management. Okay? So, we look at standard costing, how standard costing is set up, what are the different kinds of standards we will talk about. Okay? And of course, we will look at the budgetary control process. Okay? Yeah? So, Yeah, okay. So it's in chapter 10. All right, so chapter 10. Do you have chapter 10? Okay, so these are the things that we're going to look at. As soon as we finish here, then we go to variance analysis as the main topic for today. Okay? Now, we look at the purpose why prepare standards, how to calculate the different standards, and then we go to standard costings. Okay? Now, in the exam, where will we find this? Normally, you will have questions on this items we're going to talk about today under the multiple choice question part. Okay? Multiple choice question part, or maybe as a discussion on your long question, but mainly multiple choice. Okay? Now, standards. When do you prepare standards? After the period or before the accounting period? Before. It's a predetermined amount. And why do you use standard? One, of course, is for budgeting. First and foremost, decision making. When you establish standard costing, you'll actually determine, is it viable for you to establish the business or not? Okay? Because before you actually set up your business, you need to estimate your selling price, estimate your costs, so you'll see if it is within your ability to set up the business or is it going to be profitable for you? Because you might find out that the cost of the product you're selling is too high and therefore you will not be competitive in terms of the selling price in the market. Do you understand? So the first thing is, it helps you make decisions. Okay? It helps you budget. And of course, once you set a budget, you can control at the end. Okay? In other words, you can be able to say how much should be spent on materials, how much should be spent on labor. So when I hire people, I know how much I will tell them, I will pay you this much, because you establish a standard. Okay? If you establish a standard in terms of cost of materials, when your purchase manager would go and look for a supplier, he'll be able to have a benchmark in his mind what kind of prices he will accept from a supplier. Okay? Control. Of course, if you have established a budget, it's easy for you to evaluate at the end. Okay? Because evaluation will not happen unless you establish a budget. Why? How does evaluation work? What do you compare when you evaluate? Actual versus budget. Correct. Okay? And of course, when you, some companies who use standard costing, the inventory amount in the warehouse is calculated based on standard. Okay? Is it important to know how much is the inventory in the warehouse? Yeah, because you need it in financial statements, you need it in decision making, you understand? You need it in insurance, and all that. So very important. Okay? Now, calculation of standards are all based on expected prices, expected cost, expected usage, expected wastage even. You understand? So if I am budgeting how much money I need for materials, it's not just the expected cost of the materials, but also how much I'm going to use. Okay? Because I have to determine if I have enough money to buy materials to be able to meet my demand. Okay? If not, then I have to source for cash. Many connected issues. Okay? Many connected issues. So the benefit is very high. Okay? Especially if you have repetitive processes, because then you can have standard. Okay, so standard costing can be established only if I have repetitive processes. Okay, which means I make the same product, I have the same process. Because if it's not repetitive, there is no standard. How can I establish how much it is if I don't know? You understand? If every time it's a new product I make, there's no standard. Yes, I cannot establish a standard. Now, here is an example of a cost card. Now remember, a cost card includes estimated amounts. Not only, I didn't say only cost, amounts, because it tells me per unit, not only the cost, but also the required quantity and hours. So it is both financial and quantitative in nature. Okay? Financial and quantitative. But when you see the word cost card in any part of your problem, you know it gives you per unit information. And what is in there? It gives you actual or standard information? Standard information. Okay? Now, where is standard going to be used? Standard costing? Number one, it will help us calculate variances. Okay? Because variances is actual versus the standard. Okay? As I said earlier, it helps us value inventory, therefore helps us set budgets. Also, when standards and budgets are established, management can assess performance based on what we call management by exception. In other words, management can evaluate performance based on significant changes or what we call, what is the word? Deviation from the standard. You understand? So it will be able to assess performance based on significant changes between actual and budget. Now, standard cost helps company predict future costs, okay? Because you establish a standard. Also, it helps motivate the staff to be able to achieve their targets or their budgets, okay? And when you establish a standard, you usually be able to say, this is what I want. And therefore, that could be what is efficient level. So everybody works towards an efficient way of doing things, okay? Right? And again, what did I tell you? Standard costing are suitable for companies who make the same thing again and again and again and again. Okay? All right? Now, is the responsibility for setting up standard rests on the accountant only? Is it on the accountant only? No, that is the misconception of the people. They think it's the accountant who does everything when it comes to costing. If you see the cost card, it does not only tell you amounts, correct? It tells you also how many kilos to complete. How do we know how many kilos a product makes? Who knows that? The product. So the production manager has to be part of the setting up the standard. Okay? How do we know how long does it take to make the product? It's not only the production, it's also the engineer, the developer, you understand? Okay? So other people, how about rate for payment in the market? We need the HR, correct? So when we establish a standard, we need a team of people because every different member of that team has a contribution into the standard. Okay? Yes, of course, the management accountant is the one to organize the setting up of budget and standard, but we need input from many different departments. Okay? Now, there are 5 standard types. Ideal, attainable, current, basic, and 4 only. Ideal. Ideal means, another word for ideal is the word perfect. Okay? Perfect condition. Ideal means perfect. Anything that is unfavorable, okay, any wastage is not considered. Okay? So ideal, however, means that everything should be perfect. There's no idle time. There's no wastage. Okay? It's good to look at what is supposed to be perfect, but it's not good for performance evaluation. Why? if you compare the ideal standard with actual, what happens? It will always show what? Adverse results. And if you always see adverse results, what happens to the people? Do they get motivated or demotivated? Oh, demotivated. Because of course, nobody's perfect, right? Yeah, especially if you're using people. Okay? But it's good to have to see what's supposed to be perfect, but not for performance evaluation. What could be done is attainable standard. Attainable standards is where you know what you want to achieve as a perfect, efficient way, but you also consider that you should put in certain idle time. So in other words, if it takes a product to be made in 2 hours, instead of putting 2 hours, you say 2.5. Why? Because people can actually, there are points that the person has to go to the toilet. You understand things like this. So there are idle time that is acceptable idle time. Okay? So, or if you put in kilograms of how much materials to be used, you know it requires 2 kilos to make the product. But you know there is allowable wastage. In other words, there's maybe half a kilo goes into wastage or evaporation. So you need to say 2.5 kilograms instead of 2. Right? So you allow for inefficiency. Okay? Now, of course, it's attainable, so people will be more motivated to try and reach that standard. Okay? Because they know they can reach it. It's not like the ideal one, which is 100%. Current standards are those that are based on what is happening now. So which means whatever inefficiencies now is happening, you put it as part of your standard. Okay? So really, it's not motivating at all. Yeah? Not motivating because it's what is happening now. Basic standard. Basic standard is what you set up at the start of making everything. So if it started to do it 10 years ago, it's the standard from a long time ago. Okay? So it's not going to be useful in what? Is it useful for performance evaluation today? No. But why is it there? Because we want to see where we started so you can see a trend. You understand? So you need to be able to see a trend from today and until as far as in comparison to the previous year. Okay? So we said a group of people makes up the committee to set up standards and budgets. Okay? How many types of standards do we have? We have the basic, yes. You have the attainable, you have the ideal, and you have the current. What is the most ideal? What is the one that we can use? Standard that enables people to actually improve themselves is the attainable standard. Okay? That is the one that is more realistic target, enables companies to compare actual versus standard, and gives us a good measure of performance. Okay? Now, all right. So, what's the difference between a standard and a budget? Because we always hear the words. What's the difference? So both actually, okay, both are information that motivates people. They are standards form the basis of the budget. You understand? So both can be used for control purposes. So what is the standard? The standard is what? Is by unit. You remember the standard cost card? What did I tell you? Standard cost card shows you information per unit. But the budget are amounts in total. So, what does it say here? Standards generally form the basis for the budget. So if I know how much kilograms I will use, and what is the cost per kilogram, and I will know how much is my material budget, correct? Okay, so that's what it says. Standards form the basis for the budget. Because if I have the per units, I'll be able to know the total, right? But budgets are generally total. total marketing budget, total production budget, total sales budget. Do you understand? So when you hear the budget, word is total in nature. Okay? Standard costs are for those that are repetitive in nature. I have standard cost for production because I repeat. But I don't have standard cost for marketing because marketing projects are different year and year. Correct? You understand? So, I will have standard costing for items that we repeat. Budget, on the other hand, are for every area, whether it's admin, sales, production, do you understand? For every area. Standard only for production where we have repetitive actions. Standard costing, you remember the standard cost card I told you? It involves financial information and non-financial, such as kilograms, labor hours is in there, correct? But budgets, only financial information. It's only in terms of dollar or value. You understand? Okay? Those are the differences between standard cost and budgets. Alright? But they are what? They are interrelated because one helps build the other. Right? And both can be used for control purposes. Okay. Now, alright, so there's a question in terms of standard cost. What consideration will the purchasing department take into account when trying to establish a standard cost of material? Okay, alright, or how much will production take into account when they want to know how much material is needed per unit? How do they establish that? Let's talk about the first one first. How does the purchasing department, okay, set up standard cost per unit of material? Okay, how do they do that? Okay, first, it could be what? The price of the materials can be what is what? Discussed with a supplier. Because remember, the purchasing manager discusses and negotiates, correct? Okay. Or it can be that the purchasing manager knows that if he buys in many quantity, he gets discount. So he can establish purchase price per unit. Okay? So remember, letter A is the question on how does the purchasing department establish the standard cost of the material? So again, the purchase manager knows discount. He can anticipate what the market inflation rates are, so he knows what the prices could be. Okay. Sometimes, the purchasing manager already sets a contract with the supplier. Yes. So the contract states how much material can be bought in the next 3 years. Yes? Okay? Can be like that. Okay? Alright? How about the production, letter B? Is there let's stay here first. Any other, do you think, way purchasing manager can establish a standard for the coming year? Okay? Aside from prediction of the future costs, okay? I think we covered everything there, right? How about production manager? Because the next question is production department. How do they establish how much material is needed? So remember, in my standard cost, I needed the cost of the material per unit and the number of materials to be used. How do we establish that? Anybody? What will we do? Alright, so based on the product specifications, okay, that's what it means by quantity per unit based on specs. What is specs? Specifications, right? So, depending on what you're making, then you know how many kilograms of sugar you need. Imagine Coca-Cola. When they make Coca-Cola, is that a repetitive product? Yes. So do they know how much sugar in one bottle? Yes. How much is the ingredient for one bottle, correct? So they will know how much material per bottle they need. Okay? Also, they also need to know how much wastage of material can happen. How do they know that? Over a period of time. These are the production department. So they know how many percent actually goes into normal loss. Anybody remember normal loss? Okay. Normal loss is part of the production process, right? Right? What is rework? Anybody explain to me, what does it mean, rework? Amount of rework. When does that happen? Yes. So if something is defective, it has to be redone or improved on. Do you need materials for that sometimes? So sometimes yes, sometimes only labor, correct? But still additional labor, additional materials. Okay? So there must be an understanding of both the material needs and the labor needs, correct? Yeah? Okay? So these are some of the ways that standards can be established. Okay? Alright? So, alright, let's review again. Standards versus budget. Yes? What's the difference? Can you remember? First, a budget is for totals, remember? What else? Budget can be for all the functions, marketing included, HR, admin, yes? So all functions, total cost, and is always in financial, yeah? How about standard? Yeah, standard is per unit, not in total, per unit. Okay, and is only limited to departments who do repetitive action, correct? Okay, and it is both measured in, can be measured in non-dollar terms. So dollar and non-dollar. You understand? But both are what? Can you remember? Both are used for what? It can be used for forecasting, yes? It can be used for what? Control. And they are, what is the word? Interrelated. Because you need one to make the other. And which one do you need? You need the standard to make budget. Okay? Very good. Alright. Now, let's talk about flexible budget. Okay. When we talk about flexible budget, we say we make budgets in different levels of activity. Okay? So what happens? We will be able to draw up, okay, and make budgets based on different volumes of the results. So at the end of the period, when we have the actual results, we can flex the budget. What does that mean? Sorry, which one is done prior to the accounting period? The flexible budget or the flex budget? The flexible budget. The flexible budget, you prepare it before you start the period, correct? And you can make budgets for every level of activity you like, correct? But at the end of the period, when you have the actual results, you can now prepare the flex budget. How do you prepare the flex budget? What quantity do you use? The actual quantity, but the standard cost will be used. Do you understand? Okay, so again, alright, let's take a note of what we just said. Oopsies. Sorry, I'm trying to get good at the pen. Okay, first we said flexible budgets are predetermined budgets. So it's done before the start of the period on different levels of activity. The flex budget is done at the end of the period. And what do you use? You have to use two things. actual quantity and standard costs. You understand? Okay. Right. Standard costs. So therefore, when you prepare a flex budget, you actually are preparing yourself to compare the actual results versus what? The flex budget. Because it will make sense more. Okay? When you compare for variance calculation, you will compare your actual results, not with what you prepared at the beginning, which is the flexible, but your flex. Why? Because then you're comparing, your flex budget is based on actual quantity, correct? And then versus the actual result. So you actually compare it on the same level, but one is budgeted cost and the other is actual. At standard, and then is actual and actual costs. You understand? Okay. So, how do we prepare flexible budgets? Flexible budgets is only able to be prepared if, number one, all the costs of the company, you have to be able to identify which one is variable, which one is fixed, which one is semi-variable. So you have to determine the cost by behavior. You remember? When you say cost by behavior, means you are determining if the cost is variable, fixed, or semi-variable. If you have a semi-variable cost, what do you usually do? You separate. You understand? Because when you have the variable and fixed, whatever quantity you put, the variable per unit, you all need to multiply by the quantity, correct? What are the fixed costs? The fixed cost remains the same. You understand? Remember how the behavior is. So it's therefore, it is easier to flex because you know how the costs behave. Okay? So remember, the variable cost per unit will be constant. The fixed cost in total will be constant. Okay? Again, the fixed cost in total, what does constant mean? It's fixed, it doesn't change, whatever is the quantity. The variable cost per unit also does not change, correct? Per unit. Okay? So all you need to do is multiply with the quantity. Alright, so remember, if I am going to compare actual results with the flexible budget, I am not comparing the same thing. Okay? Alright? So, but to be able to compare the same thing, so let's say for example, look, I'll give you an example. This was the original flexible budget. This was the actual result. What was the actual result? The actual result, they only were able to produce 8,000 and sell 8,000. This was the budget. So when I take the actual results against the flexible budget, okay, what does it tell us? Okay. Wow, it says, ooh, look, everything is what? Favorable. Good job, isn't it? We were able to save on cost. Good job. Is it really? No. It's because you did not meet your target. Okay? It doesn't make real sense. Okay? Is it really a good measurement for performance? No. Okay? Because what we're comparing, this is, remember the apples and oranges? Yeah? Means that you're not comparing like. Alright? So what do you need to do? I need to prepare a budget on which level? On the 8,000 level. And what do you call that? Flex budget. Okay? So when you now flex your budget, you will be able to compare, and it's going to be a good way to measure the costs, okay, controlled, by comparing the actual with the flex budget. How do you therefore, okay, what did we say to summarize? If we prepare flexible budget, First, you need to be able to do what? Okay, in a moment I'll tell you how. But flexible budget shows us budgets in different levels of activity. Okay, may be prepared reveal it will give us variances and be able to tell us control processes, okay? But only if we flex the budget. Only if you flex the budget, okay? Compare with the flex budget. How do you flex? Okay, when you actually prepare flexible budget, what did we say? Number one, you must be able to know the different cost behavior patterns. Number two, when you have a semi-variable cost, you have to apply high-low method. Number three, only then you'll be able to prepare your flex budget, okay, for control purposes. All right? All right, so let's see. I have an example here, and I want you to prepare, okay, first, I want you to prepare a budget at different levels of activity. 80%, 90%, 100%. Okay? Now, what are the different costs? Okay? These are the different costs. These are the variable costs. It says in the 100% represents 60,000 hours. So 90% of 60,000 is what? What is the number of hours? I think I have 54. So if on page 15, you have the table there, correct? Okay, I want you to prepare a budget for 80%, which is 48,000 hours, 54,000 hours, and 60,000 hours. So remember, what was the first procedure? You need to determine which costs are variable, which costs are fixed, and if it's semi-variable, you have to separate the costs, variable cost and the fixed cost, okay? So, in the problem, it says direct labor hour is 3.75. Other variable costs are indirect labor, consumable supplies, canteen, and other welfare services, which is 6% of the what? Direct and indirect labor costs. So direct and indirect labor costs. Are you following so far? Easy, yeah? Semi-variable costs are, gives you historical information, correct? What do you do? High-low method. So you need to know variable cost per unit and fixed cost per year. Then, all these are fixed costs. What happens? Does this change? No. All right. So therefore, forget about letter B first. Letter A. Letter A, I want you to prepare how many columns? 80%, 90%, and 100%. Okay? Can you do that now? Get working with your study buddy. Are you okay? Cold? Earlier it was so hot. We don't believe it earlier. Yeah, if you use a computer, it's faster. If you use manually, then it can be faster too. Okay, let's see who's faster, manual or computer. I'll check with you. So let's see. So far, what do you have? What are the variable costs? This one, correct? Okay, you have your all these. And your 6% is on what? Okay, is on the direct labor and the indirect labor cost, correct? So you need to calculate the first line, 2 lines, to get the canteen and other welfare costs. HIVA method, which one did you take? You have to look at what? The level of activity. Which one's the highest? So 64 is your high. What is your low? 40. So you have to get that corresponding one. Okay? To get your variable cost per unit, and you need to calculate your fixed costs in total, correct? Alright, so, and after that is easy. Okay, so let's see. You finish? Oh, very easy. Okay. Let's see. Some of you have completed the first line. How much is the first line? First line is easy. Okay? How many thousands? Direct labor. First one, 180,000. Second one, 202,500, correct? And the last one, 225,000. Indirect labor, 36,000, 40,500, and 45,000. Now the total of those two multiplied by 6% is your what? Canteen and welfare. Now the fixed cost remains the same. What is your variable cost per unit? Okay, 0.2 and total fixed cost 8,000. Okay, so what happens? You have to take 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, correct? And the variable cost you have to multiply, okay? Multiply by the number of hours per, okay? So let me show you exactly what happened here. Yes? So, what happened here? This is what we talked about. This multiplied by 6% will make your canteen, correct? Yes? How did we get this amount here? What did you do? 0.2 multiplied by what? 48, correct? Plus what? Plus 8,000. Agree? Yes? How about the next one? It is still 8,000, but it's what? 0.2 multiplied by 54. Do you understand? Okay. And this one here is what? 8,000 and 0.2 multiplied by 60,000 hours. Yes? Is that correct? Okay. So, if we have this, and I will tell you to prepare a flex budget, and the flex budget I want you to prepare is 57,000 hours. Is it easy to calculate the flex budget? Yes or no? Okay, so all you need to do is take the per unit, correct? Alright, multiply according to what you've done. And semi-variable cost would be 20 cents per 57,000 hours, correct? Plus 8,000. The fixed cost remains the same. Yes? Question? You go back to your semi-variable cost. It has the history. Yeah, high-low method. Oh, so this gives you history. So that's why we said which one's high and which one's low. You have to calculate variable cost per unit and total cost. Yeah? Good question. Yes, everybody understand where the numbers are coming from, huh? I know it's fun. Okay. I don't know what to do. I think the system is damaged. Don't worry, we will complain to the president of the school. Okay? You understand, everybody? Clear? Alright, so when I have actual results, where will I compare? I should compare with the what? With the flex budget. Oh, sorry, wrong. Okay? I should compare with the flex budget. Okay? That is where I need to compare with. Okay? So this one is what you compare with actual results. All right, clear, everyone? Okay, don't worry. I will put this on the Google Classroom in our OneNote, so I can send it to you. Okay, clear? Can we proceed? Yes. Okay. Good. Good job. All right. So I'll put all that. These are all the calculations. Now, when we at the end of the period compare the flex budget and the actual budget, and we have the results of the comparison, I should give the results of the comparison, the variance analysis, to the managers who are accountable for that particular cost. In other words, I cannot give the variance or the report to the person or manager who does not control. And when we say control, means what exactly? The manager is able to make decisions on that. Okay? So don't give him information that is not within his control. And that is what is the principle of controllability. It may be at expense of his department, but if he does not control it, he does not make decisions on it, he cannot be held accountable for it. You understand? Okay? You cannot ask a manager to explain why there is a variance when he is not in control of that particular expense. Okay? That is the principle of controllability. Okay? Controllability. Now, alright? Okay, let's do a little bit of review. Okay? You remember about motivation? We said budgets and standards motivate. Which of the four do you remember which motivates the most? Attainable standard, okay? Attainable standard is the best type of standard that is, you set it, will motivate. The ideal demotivates. Current doesn't motivate at all because already they are achieving it. You understand? Okay? And basic is too old to be able to elicit any motivation at all. Yes? Right? Okay, let's do another question review before we take a break. Okay? Now, if inflation is significant, okay, is the standard going to be relevant? Okay. Now, at times of inflation, what should they do? What should they do with the standard? Okay. In times of inflation, okay, decision needs to be made. So, what level to set the standard at? In other words, if there is an inflation, can you adjust the standard? Yes or no? Yes, of course. Otherwise, your standard does not make sense. You understand? Okay? It is, of course, again, if your prices, if it is at inflated prices, early in the year, it will actually be favorable variance due to the price may be, okay, due to the price may be too high. So it's always going to be favorable. All right? So, in other words, you have to set and put the inflation, okay, at a time, you set the inflation rates at the time when the inflation is at its, okay, standard inflation rates, okay? Because sometimes in the year, what happens to inflation? At the beginning, the inflation rate is higher than up. Anybody knows economy here? When does inflation happen? Inflation normally is low at the beginning. It goes into the middle, goes higher, correct? What happens towards the end? It goes down again. Okay? So, what happens? When you set the standard when it has inflation, okay, you need to be able to put in an inflation rate that is more or less on the average, you understand? Because if the inflation rate is too low, then your standard will be too low and therefore your actual will be different. Or if it's too high, then it's always adverse effects. Understand? So yes, it is inflation should be used to adjust, okay? Adjust your standard. It's very important too. Okay. All right. Now, different countries have different inflation rates. You know that, correct? Okay. So remember again, you need to be able to know what country the corporation is working at. Sometimes it also sometimes some companies buy materials from other countries. So when you're setting the standard, you have to know where the materials are coming from. You understand? Because different countries have different inflation rates. Okay. Question. The following statements have been made about different types of standard setting. Which of these two statements are true? Answer. Take a note. Read and give me the answer. Which one is true? Or which ones are true? Okay? You have an answer for me? A, B, C, or D? B. Both are correct. Number 2 is correct. What is your answer? Answer is letter C. Neither 1 or 2. You know that the basic standard, is it the best basis for budgeting? No. Ideal standard, is it useful for day-to-day control purposes? No, it's a very perfect scenario, right? So if you use that to control means, what do you mean by control? Control means you compare actual versus the standard. Now, if you use the ideal, it's always adverse, correct? This statement is not correct. Okay? What is best to be used for day-to-day? Attainable standard, not the ideal. So answer is letter C. Alright, before you go for a break, let's summarize the chapter. The standard cost can be used for these purposes. Yes? We talked about that earlier. Standard setting can take place, okay, are prepared so that we can look into what happens in the future. You need to look at price increases, efficiencies, and everything. There are 4 bases for making standards, okay, all right, and standards are set so that it can be attainable to drive the best possible performance, okay. Flexible budget. You know the flexible budget is prepared in different levels of activity. At the end of the period, you actually use the actual results to prepare a flex budget, correct? Okay, easy, right? And then, of course, controllability means managers should be accountable for those items, expenses, or sales that they can control. Right? Okay. Recent exams. Where is the exam all about? You see, they ask the candidates, the students to flex a budget. Exactly what I asked you to do earlier. You understand? Okay. So that is where they're gonna come and get the exam questions in this particular chapter. You need to be able to identify. How do you flex? Number 1, you have to identify the cost behavior. If there's a semi-variable cost, you need to know how to do high, low method. And then apply it. You understand? Apply. Alright? Good. Alright? So the black screen means it's time for you to have a break. When you come back, it's exciting. Variance analysis. Wow. 1. All right? So when you come back, please get 2 slides. There's the chapter slide and my working slide. So please come and get a copy. Okay, when you come back from your break. Okay? So have a nice break. Please come back in 15 minutes. Sorry. Okay. Yes. Because I will save this in the OneNote. I'll save it in the OneNote. Which you will make it. Yes, I will do that. So that. Yeah, so you're supposed to listen to my discussion. No, that is the idea. So you keep attention. Yes, I mean. I'll take notes. everybody back? All right, let's start with variance calculation, everybody. All right, what are we going to cover here? We will start with basic variances. Probably this is only a revision of what you already know. Okay. Then we'll talk about operating statements and investigating variances. All these top 3 topics are just review. What you will be tested on in performance management exam is on materials mix and yield variance, and sales mix and quantity variances. Okay? These 2 are the main topics which you'll be tested on. So we will do a lot of exercises on these 2 as well. Alright, so remember, you will be asked to calculate and identify why there is a variance, the causes of the variance. Okay? It also, okay, says what happens if you change the mix? How does it affect the variance? Right? So we're going to look at that. Then we'll go on to discuss about sales mix and quantity variance. These are the ones that they're going to ask us in our exams. Okay? So in our chapter, okay, we will look at basic variances to remind us how variances are calculated, and we will review it very extensively. I will give you examples on how to calculate basic variances so that it will be easier for you to calculate more complicated variances. What are the complicated variances? Mix and yield variances, sales quantity and sales mix variances. These are the ones that you will be examined on in the performance management exam. Okay, so let's do a little bit of revision first. Okay, all right, so remember, the main topics that you'll be examined about is mix and yield variances, planning and operational variances. This is our next chapter. So these 2 will be your main exam questions. So we are going to see these questions in section C of your exam. And section C is the long question in your exams. Okay? So you will be asked to calculate and as well as explain the causes of these variances. And we will do that as well in our exercises. So, the next 3 slides provide you with the basic information which you will be using in the calculation of basic variances. So this is our example. So we have a product A. You're given its cost card. You have materials, labor, overheads. Okay. So you have all that information per unit. You also have in the next slide to that additional information. Okay. Budgeted information. Okay. And then the next slide gives you actual results. Okay, remember, when you are doing a variance analysis, you compare actual versus budgets. Alright, so these 3 slides are our basic information to be able to solve the variance. So, when we're looking at material variances, we have 3 things. Total material variance, price variance, and usage variance. Now, when you look at total variance, you actually compare, okay, this output at actual cost versus how it is per standard. So, let's see. How many units were produced in total? How many units? What does it say in our given information? Okay. All right. So, production was 1,000 units. What was the standard cost of the material? Standard cost is what per unit? $50. Okay. So that's what happened here. So 50,000. How much did they actually pay? Yeah, is it 46? Yes, in the actual slide. All right, so what do you see? There is a variance. There is a difference. And why is it favorable? Can somebody tell me why is it favorable? Because your actual, which is this, right? So this is your actual, is what? Lower than what is supposed to be, correct? Alright, so this is lower. So you actually have a favorable variance. But that favorable variance, let's explain it. Was it because of the price or was it because of the usage? Alright, so therefore, let's look at the price variance. So when you look at a price variance, you are comparing the standard price, is that correct? Is $10 the standard price? Yes. Versus the what? Versus the actual price. But the quantity we use is what? What is this quantity? Actual or standard quantity? This one is actual quantity. Okay, this one already we know it is at actual quantity. Now again, what does it mean here? It means that, what happened here? Favorable means they bought it at a higher price or lower price? Lower price. Okay? They bought the quantity at lower than the standard price. Correct? Okay? So that is, it's favorable in terms of price. But what about usage? Because remember, the 3925 should be broken down into price and usage. Now let's look at the usage. How many units did they make? Okay, this is actual production, correct? How many kilograms should they use? Okay, so times 5 kilograms, correct? So, how many did they actually use? Alright, so why is it favorable? So use less, which means they spend less, right? Okay. When you have the usage variance, you always multiply with the standard. So what do we have? We have, because the usage is favorable, then you have a usage variance that is favorable. What was the total variance? The material variance was how much? Sorry, the price variance is? How much the price variance? 2, 9, something? 2, 4, 2, 5, favorable, correct? Usage is what? 1, 5, favorable. What is the net effect of these two? Okay, is 3,925 favorable. Is that the total earlier? Yes. So the total variance is broken down into 2. Yes? Okay? Now. Alright, let's see. Let's practice. In your additional slide, the other slide, okay, I have, go to page number 4. Page number 4. I'm looking at the supplemental slide I gave you. Okay, so page number 4. I have an example that I will ask you to calculate price, usage, and total variance. Can you do that? Okay. Price, usage, and total variance. Page number 4. Okay, page number 4. First, I'm sure by now you finish your total variance, correct? How many units do they make? 1,000 units, okay? How much is the standard price they put per unit? How many? Should be 10 kilos, correct? Sorry, $10 per kilo. How many kilos? 2. So 20, right? So how much they should have spent? How much? 20,000. Is that correct? Yeah. Actual payment, actual cost, 20,900. Is there a variance? Is there a variance? The variance is 900 what? Favorable, adverse? Adverse. Why is it adverse? Okay, why is it adverse? Your actual cost is higher than the standard, correct? Now, let's break that down into 2. And let's see. Okay? Well, first you have the price. What was the standard price? The standard price is 10 per kilo. Okay, what is the actual expense? We don't have the actual per kilo, but we have the total cost, correct? What is the total cost? 20,900. For how many kilos is this? What was the actual kilos? 2,000, okay, 200 kilos. Yes? So, you use the same one up there. Why? Because what you're comparing is the price. The quantity should be the same. Okay? So that's how you remember the variance. When you say price variance, you're comparing the price. If it's usage variance, you're comparing the usage. The cost will remain the same. You understand? Here, the cost will be compared, and this one quantity remains the same. So, in terms of price variance, it should have been costing them how much? 22,000. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. So, what is their variance? What is the variance here? 1,100. Favorable or adverse? Favorable. So, they actually bought the items cheaper, correct? Okay. Now, let's look at the usage. Alright? The 1,000 units, how many kilograms it's supposed to be? 2 kilograms. So they should have used how many kilograms? 2,000 kilograms. How much was the actual usage? 2,200 kilograms. Is there a variance? Yes. They used 200 more. Favorable or adverse? Adverse. They used more, correct? What is the cost I told you always to use? Standard cost. How much is it per kilogram? 10. So this one is what? 2,000 adverse. Yes? Now look at the net effect. Does this 2, if you take the net effect, that is 900 adverse? Yes? Okay. Now can you tell me the possible reasons why you have a favorable variance in terms of the price? What could have happened? Okay, it could be that they bought a cheaper, yes, it's just a cheaper price. But why did they buy it at a cheaper price? What could be the reasons? Can be discount, yes, or it can be lower quality, you understand? So these are possible reasons, yes, okay. Or maybe the standard prepared can be wrong, or it can be prepared in a higher inflation rate, you understand? Then we bought it at a cheaper price, right? Okay. Now, what could have been the reason why the usage is adverse? Why did production use more? What could be the reasons? What could be the reason why they use more? More what? Maybe more rework, correct. What else? Wastage, correct. More wastage, right? So inefficiency of labor. Right. Any other reason? If they bought the materials at cheaper price and at lower quality, you understand? So what happened? If you buy something at lower, you actually probably use more because people may not be able to manage a newer quality of lower quality of items. Okay. For example, if you use a material that is lower quality, maybe you need to use more of it because it's lower quality. That is the reason. Okay. Possible reason. Okay. Good. All right. So that was our example on material variances. Now, let's go back to your main, okay, slide. So that slide is, the second set of slides is our working slide, yes? Okay. Next one. All right, so let's come to labor variances. Oh, labor variances. Labor variances is on the main slide now. Yes. This is standard cost. The price. Cost means the price you bought it from. The price of the material. Yeah, which is your standard cost, basically. Yeah. Yes. Correct. All right. Labor cost now. Again, you have total labor cost. All right. So you're going to get the number of units, right? How much is the labor cost per unit? Compare with the actual labor expense. That will give you your total labor variance. And again, here it is adverse because your actual expense is higher than the budget. You understand? Okay. Now, when it comes to labor, you can break it down into two. Rate and what? Yeah, and the hours. And that is, you call it efficiency. Okay? Efficiency. Did they make it in shorter time or longer time? You understand? So let's look at the rate first. So when you look at the rate, so labor rate, you compare the what? When it says labor rate, you compare the rate. Okay, actual rate versus the standard rate. Okay, again, you'll be able to see that what you use in terms of hours is supposed to be actual hours. You remember materials? We use actual kilograms, correct? In labor, we use actual labor hours. You understand? Okay, actual labor hours. Then you get the rate variance. Okay, now, efficiency, you remember what I told you? You don't say usage hours, you say efficiency hours, okay? Efficiency variance. What are you comparing? You're comparing the standard hours versus the actual hours, okay? Again, why is it adverse? Why adverse? Because were the workers efficient or not? They were supposed to take only 4,000 hours. They took longer to make it, so not efficient, right? Therefore, adverse, because you have to pay more, right? You always multiply that variance in hours with the standard rate, not the actual, the standard rate, yes? And again, your efficiency variance and your rate variance, the net effect should equal to total labor variance, yes? Again, I have example in our working slide. Can you do that? Go to the working slide. Try it again. I'm going to fry your brain today until you go home. You're very hungry because you've been doing a lot of calculation. Yes? Labor. Okay? I need total, rate, and efficiency. Okay? Total, rate, and efficiency. Variance calculation, everybody from FA2 to P5, they always say it's so difficult to remember how to do. It's very easy to remember, and I'm telling you that, okay? So, by the time we finish this tomorrow, you will be experts in this field. Yes. Okay? You can take the exam tomorrow, if the variance only comes out. Nothing else, huh? Of course, huh? Okay, let's take a look at labor variance. All right. Okay. What happened? Are we done? Yeah. Tomorrow I need you to bring your computers. When we calculate mix and yield variance, I will use the Excel spreadsheet. Now this one is exercise. Okay? This is nothing. Yes? Just exercise. How many units were made? Actual output, how many? How many? How many units were made? Because we're going into total first. Total. Total is 1,000 units. How many hours should it take? 15 hours to make each one. How much is it per hour? 4.80. So this is your standard, correct? It should cost you, bless you, how much? 72,000. Is that correct? Yes. All right. So how much was the actual cost? 69,750. Variance? How much? 2,250. Tell me, favorable or adverse? Oh, favorable. But really, was it because we paid less? Or was it because they were efficient or not efficient? Let's break it down. Yes? What was the rate per hour? Standard? 4.80, correct? And actual payment made was what? 69,750. For how many hours did that 69 for? For 15,500 hours. Now remember, that is the same hours you use on the top, correct? Actual hours. So how much should have that cost them? 74,400. Is that what you got? Yes? Okay. So, obviously, there is a variance. And the variance is how much? 4,650. Favorable or adverse? Favorable. Yes? Now let's look at efficiency level. These 1,000 units, based on standard, how many hours per unit is supposed to be? 15 hours each, correct? It should take them 15,000 hours. What is the actual hours? 15,500. Ooh, there is a variance. What is that? Favorable or adverse? Adverse. What is the rates? 4.8. So therefore, your efficiency variance is how much? 2,400 adverse. Okay? Now, that net effect, is it equal to the one on the top? 2,250? Favorable. Yes? Okay, let's see. What could be the reason why you have a favorable rate variance? You got a discount. You don't have discount on labor. Why do you pay less? Can be the reason. Maybe lower skilled labor. You actually plan to have this level of laborers. You cannot find it, so you go lower. Of course, the lower the skill, the lesser the pay. Yes? Okay. All right. Could be. Okay. Or your standard may be too high. All right. Can be a reason. But what could be? What is the reason why you have an adverse efficiency? Well, Simply, if you have lower skill, what happened? Will they work faster or slower? Slower. Hence, because they work slower, it took them more hours to complete the same job. You understand? Therefore, adverse. Do you understand? Okay? So, very good. Okay, good. Now we go to the next. What is the next type of overhead? We have, sorry, variance. I just said overhead. Okay? Wrong. Forgive me, I am hungry. Probably you are too. Okay? Alright. Huh? Oh, you are super hungry. Okay, then you're more than me. Okay. Alright. Be careful. Don't go near him. Okay. Let's go to the main topic now. Okay, the main topic. Let's go to variance calculation. Okay. Now there are two kinds of overhead calculation. You have a variable overhead and a fixed overhead. So let's talk about variable overhead first. Okay. So variable overhead. What do we have? All right. First, of course, we look at how they calculate the variable overhead, okay? And compare it with what they actually paid for. Now, the overhead variances, the variable overhead, is broken down into two. What are the two? Expenditure and efficiency. Expenditure, because you don't have rate, but you have amount you pay for. What are some of the variable overhead? Can you tell me? What could be variable overhead? What could it be? Consumables, correct? Okay, things that change when you do production. Consumables, let's say plastic or those that are considered overhead, not necessarily fixed. It changes with the number of units produced, correct? Okay. So sometimes the rate of buying these variable overhead items are actually higher than what you planned, correct? So you have an expenditure variance and an efficiency variance. Because sometimes variable production overhead is based on labor hours. You understand? It's based on labor hours. So you have an efficiency variance. So you look at the total variance here. What do they have? Again, same thing. You have the number of units and you have to look at the variable overhead per unit. Yes? Compare against what? The variable expense. Then you have the variance calculation. Again, it's a cost. So if you spend less than the budget, then if you spend more than the budget in this case, it is adverse. If you spend less, it is favorable. Now, how do we calculate expenditure variance? Same thing. If you look at expenditure variance, sorry, it's all over the place. I hope it's not all over the place in yours. Let me see. It dances. The thing dances. Okay, hold on. Alright, so what did we compare here? You compare, the rates, the variable overhead rates per hour, and what do you use? What is this? You use, this is what? Actual or budgeted hours? Can you check? What hours did we use here? Actual hours. Okay? Because you're going to compare against actual cost. So it's actual hours versus that what you budgeted to be as your variable overhead rates. Okay? Now, what about the efficiency variance? Sounds familiar? Yes. When we talk about efficiency, we talk about labor hours. Now, you know how to compare labor hours, correct? Similar to labor efficiency variance. So what did you do? You will compare. Hold on, sorry guys. I'm not sure if yours is better. Remember the labor efficiency variance earlier? It was 200, correct? But instead of multiplying it with the labor rate, what is this rate? Your variable production overhead rates. You understand? This is not the labor rate because you're calculating variable overhead efficiency variance. The calculation of the labor hours is the efficiency hours is like the labor hours, correct? But in labor hours, you multiply with the labor rate, right? In variable production overhead, you multiply with the variable overhead rate per hour. You'll understand? Okay. So let's practice again. Okay. Go to your practice slide. Okay. Let's look at your practice slide, ladies and gentlemen. So my question to you, if you're super hungry, does your brain work? Oh, okay. Slowly. Oh, slowly, huh? Well, at least it works, huh? Oh, you're honest, huh? Good. Excellent. Sometimes it's good to be honest to yourself. Okay. Alright, so let's see here. Let's see if we have the information we need. It doesn't hurt. You think I will stop, no? Okay, there's no stopping, huh? Okay. How many units we're going to make? Let's see. You have 1,000 units. Okay. You have the hours. Do we have the standard rates for overhead? Where is it per hour? You see it? $1 per hour. You got that? Yes? And how much did they spend for overhead expenses, valuable overheads? 14,900. All right? So let us begin. So, okay, very simply. Okay, so what do we do first? We have, okay, total variable production overhead total variance. Total first. Okay. Then we said you can break this down into two. What were the two again? Okay, so you have variable overhead expenditure variance. Expenditure. We need to learn the terminology because they will actually ask of you that so you know what you're calculating. And the other one is called variable overhead. What is it called again? Efficiency variance. All right. Okay, so let's try you doing it. Based on what we discussed earlier, can you try and calculate the variances and see? Okay? Done? Okay, very simple, huh? Alright, my microphone gave way. Alright. How many units again? 1,000. How many hours? 15 hours. And remember, the rate is $1 per hour, correct? Yes? So, they should have spent how much? 15,000. What was the actual expenditure? 14,900. You have a variance of 100, which is favorable. Okay, break it down into efficiency and expenditure. All right? Okay. Now, the rate was $1, correct? How much did they pay? 14,900. For how many hours? 15,500 hours. Okay, so again, you take that up here. So which means it's 15,500, right? The variance is 600 what? Favorable. Very good. Okay, favorable. Now let's look at efficiency. Similar to the labor efficiency. 1,000 units. How many hours supposed to be? 15. So 15,000 hours. Actual hours? 15,500. You have a variance of 500, which is adverse. But the rate you will use is the what? Is the variable overhead rate. You understand? So this is what? 500 adverse. Net effect? 100 favorable. Yes? 100 favorable. Okay? One more is the what? Fixed production overhead variance. But the fixed production is a little bit strange. Okay? It's a little bit more complicated. Okay? Why do I say that? Because, alright, so what happened to the fixed production overhead? Okay, let me show you. The fixed production overhead. I think if you continue on your working slide, you know, I gave you the working slide, right? If you look at that, look at the working slide that we do. Do you see this? Yes, in your working slide, not in my original slides. The working slide, this one here. The one that you have the activity that you do. Yes, do you see that? The activity that you do. Yeah, do you see that there? Yes, okay. What do you see? Your fixed overhead is divided into two. What are the two? So you have a total fixed overhead variance. Then you break it down into what? Expenditure and volume. Volume. The volume variance only exists if the company uses absorption costing. Again, if the company uses absorption costing, there is going to be a volume variance. You understand? Okay. Now remember, when we're talking about fixed costs, the more you produce than the budget, is it better? Yes, because in fixed overhead, you want many to absorb the cost of your fixed overhead. Do you understand? In other words, if you have something fixed expense, you want to make sure that you are producing more. Okay? You are able to produce more from the same cost. Alright? Now, that volume variance can be broken down into two more variants. Yes? So that is the slide below. What are the two variances that will explain the volume variance? The two volume variances is capacity and efficiency. Capacity and efficiency. Now, in the volume variance, capacity, and efficiency, we are going to use hours. But in the volume variance, and expenditure variance, we are going to use units, not hours. You understand? Okay. So let's take an example. Okay. Let's look at an example. Can you go back to our main slide? What is your main slide? Go to your main slide. Okay. Main slide. You probably say, oh, why don't you not keep it in one side? Why you also have to keep it moving from one side to the other? Because I know the time of the night I am teaching you. If I keep it on one slide, you will sleep on me. But if I keep it in two sets, you keep flipping and flipping and flipping, no chance to sleep. Yes? Okay? So, good idea, huh? Okay, but nevertheless, you still sleep, isn't it? Because you're super tired and super hungry. Okay, go back to the main one. Okay, where am I? I am the one who's lost. Okay, here we go. Alright, so fixed overhead variances. Remember, our total, okay, look, our total variance is the same calculation as the what? Same calculation as if you are calculating under or over absorption. Now, let me see if you still remember. How do you calculate over or under absorption? MA1, MA2, you're my student. Okay. F2, you're my student. Now, do you remember? OMG. How do you calculate over and under absorption? Listen to me, and you will never forget. Okay? It's like this preacher, you know. Listen to me, and you will be forgiven of your sins. Okay, it's like that. Okay, so listen to me. When you calculate over and under absorption, the formula is always your actual, okay, overhead. I'm the one hungry. Overhead. Actual. You compare with what? We call it absorbed overhead. Now when you say absorbed overhead is actually your OAR. You know what is OAR, right? What is OAR? Overhead absorption rate. Yes? Okay. Multiply with your actual level of activity. Okay? So, what do you have? You will have an over or under absorption. What does it mean, absorption? Another term for absorption. Another term for absorption? Recovery. Recovery. Why? To whom do you recover your cost from? Who pays for your cost? The customer. You understand? So, what happens here? Okay? I budgeted a certain rate of overhead. This is what I have sold. Sometimes I recover from the customer more than my actual expense. What do I call that? I got more from the customer than my actual. Is it over or under recovery? Over. I had more. I was able. How do I recover? How do I recover cost? How do you recover the cost from the customer? How do you set up a selling price? So you add all the expenses, correct? Materials, labor, and overhead, right? Correct? you actually get money to pay your materials, pay your labor, and you're supposed to get something to pay your overhead expense. Now you understand? Now sometimes when you actually sell more than what you budgeted, what happens? You will recover more. Okay? You recover more. So therefore, sometimes what you absorb is higher than your expenses. So what do you call that? Over or under? When you get more from your customer, it's over absorption. You understand? Because I can recover more money than what I need to pay for the rent, for the electricity. You understand? Now, what happens? Can it be reversed? Can I recover less? Yes. And what is that recovery less? Under absorption. So how do we know which one is favorable and which one is adverse? Which one is favorable? Which one is adverse? Over. Of course, you want to have more. Otherwise, if you don't have more, where will you get money to pay the electricity? You have to get it from the profit. Do you understand? Yes? And you don't want that. You understand? So an over-absorption is favorable, and under-absorption is adverse. Okay, you understand? Okay? An over-absorption is favorable, and under-absorption is, okay, sorry. Okay. Again, over is what? Favorable or adverse? Favorable. And under-absorption is? Adverse. Okay? So the total fixed overhead can be calculated using the over or under-absorption calculation. Okay? Alright. Now, the total overhead, we said, can be broken down into two. Do you remember what we said? What are the two? Expenditure and... Okay. So first is expenditure. Expenditure is basically what did you budget as an overhead against what you spent. So this one is what? This one is your budgeted quantity, or is this your actual quantity? What do you think? Budgeted quantity. This is your budgeted quantity. This is your budgeted OAR. Yes? Per unit. This is your actual overhead. That's what is given. So you have an expenditure variance. So again, if your actual expense is lower than your budgeted expense, it is favorable. Okay? Now, what about volume? What are you comparing in volume? Okay? Let's take a look at volume. You are going to look at what was your, okay, what is this? Your actual quantity versus your budgeted quantity, yes? At the standard rate. Now, which one's bigger? The actual quantity or the budgeted quantity? So, is it favorable or adverse? Why is it adverse? Yeah, you remember volume. What did you say? The more you make, the better, right? Yes, when it comes to fixed overhead, the more you make, the better. Earlier, with materials and labor, the more labor hours, the more materials used is adverse, correct? But this one is reverse. Because the more volume I actually make, it's better. But in this case, what happened in this case? It's supposed to be 1,200. They only make 1,000. That is why, what is the variance here? Favorable or adverse? Adverse. You understand? Adverse. Because it's volume. I need more volume because I need to spread my fixed overhead. Yes? Okay. Now, the volume variance and the expenditure variance, does it equal to the total variance? it should be. You understand? It should be. Alright? So I have a homework for you. What do you think is my homework for you? In your exercise page. Yes? Look at your exercise page. I have an example for you to give me when we meet tomorrow. I will stand by the door. I will check. That is your pass to go inside the room. Boarding pass. Boarding pass, huh? Where we're going, huh? You really are hungry, huh? Going far away. Okay. Yes, it's your boarding pass. You're right. So this is our example. And I need you to do total variance, expenditure, and volume. Now, if you're a little bit advanced, you can do capacity and efficiency. But I'm giving you only total, expenditure, and volume. Yes? All right. Good. You're so eager to go. Tomorrow, we continue on volume variance. And then we go discuss about investigating variances and operating statements. Then we go to material mix, material yield, sales quantity, sales mix. Okay? And then planning variance and operational variance. Okay? Good luck. Go home, have some meal, and I will see you tomorrow at 1:30, correct? Okay, thank you very much for your cooperation today, and I will see you tomorrow. I canceled the classes. I canceled the classes after your after your Khmer New Year, yes? I canceled that because historically, statistically, nobody comes. For my 10 years in Khmer, all the time, statistically, even if Khmer says there is school, nobody's here. So go and enjoy. Okay? Because after that holiday is full month of work until your exam. Enjoy it first. So don't be confused. Huh? All right. Very good. I'm seeing some stuff. What is it that I need to Alright, see ya. Take care. Eat well. Eat well. Sleep well. Eat well and sleep well. Eat well and sleep well. Mắt lên được thì chưa vậy. Uống nước nhanh rồi. Ăn chó đấy như vậy. Ướt kìa. Bye. See ya. Bye. Take care. Eat well. Rest well. Is somebody fetching you? My husband comes to fetch you. No? Oh my. So you take you drive back? You call a cab? Or take care. Careful. Chumaway?
Dạ,
Chumaway?
mua cây sọt hoàn.
Sapuan?
Dạ,
Sapuan. Okay, Sapuan.
sọt hoàn.
Chumcharan. Chumrips.
Chim rít lìa.
Okay.
Nek terus semua ada.
Maria.
Mari.